You are contributing to humanity by making people laugh. And I always say the beautiful thing about stand-up comedy is that it's such a sublime alchemy to take one's personal pain and transform that into public pleasure.
Nobody knows your act. Like when you screw up in your act, or you're off track, or you don't really know where you want to go next. Nobody knows that except you. So if you tip them off, then yeah, your entire set can be destroyed. But if you learn certain techniques. Excuse me. If you learn that was a technique. That wasn't a real cough. That was a BS cough. That was a cough to stall. And you can do that on stage anytime you want to. You can go ahead and grab the microphone stand and put the mic in it while you're stalling and act like you're getting ready to do a bit, but you were stalling. Learn stall techniques on stage, because our main thing is we have to remain entertaining. You can drop the microphone if you want. Anything so you mentally can get back on track, but you're not standing there looking at the audience like, I'm lost. Never let them see you sweat.
It's still like a process. Like I'm still finding out like certain things, and like I feel like I've got a good sense, but I'm still learning every day. But I think how I was able to find my comedy voice was just by doing a lot of different stories and kind of realizing like, oh, this is like me. This is like my personality. This is what I'm drawn to. This is what I like. And I remember, Beth was like a big component about like what are you selling, who are you, and like I remember it kind of like I feel like sometimes it takes someone else pointing out like, oh, this is what you do naturally, because like you don't even think about it. Like I do a lot of like Beth was describing me and she said it's almost like you're like a modern day kind of Lucy. Like you get into these weird kind of things and we don't think it's gonna work out for you, but it does. And then it's like, okay, like that's my persona. And I also think coming from a writer, it's like I think as stand-up, it's like, yes, I am myself, but it's also like a heightened version of myself. Mm-hmm. And it's like looking at that character and going like, okay, so like how can we push it? Like how can I describe real events and do it under the guise of like my own voice, and like this is like me. Like I'm a very optimistic person, and so of course like that is gonna boil over into the stand-up.
You got to express your truth. That's first and foremost, because sometimes your truth might not be fun. You just might be a crazy motherfucker like Sam Kinison, but people enjoy that. Look at that dude go off, man. That's fucking entertaining. That is entertaining. But if that's true, don't fake right. it, but if that's your, a lot of people, their whole comedy thing is angst. Well, go with it, be an anxious motherfucker, mm-hmm. But go all the way with if that's you, do you. That ain't gonna work for me because I ain't anxious.
I tried to find a therapist that was Mexican American. I couldn't find one, and I didn't feel comfortable enough to talk to people that were not Latino, knowing our issues or our thoughts and our fears and our woes, especially in Hollywood, because there was nothing in Hollywood at that time that we really, we just kept playing the step and fetch your characters, Latino style. It was me kind of doing it as, I guess, a form of therapy, writing to mm-hmm. talk about what it was like being a Latina.
All of a sudden, we found out that we had, there was a niche. There's a space for women like us. We had something to say, and people wanted to hear it.
It took me a long time to realize this. It's not about the jokes. People labor on the jokes and the material. It's not. You got to have good material, no question about it. But it's more about. It's not what you say so much. The audience doesn't go by what you say. It's how you make them feel. You know who's getting all the parts in TV and stuff? All these alternative comics like Janine Garofalo and, all the people who bomb in a straight comedy club, the people doing setup punchline. So it's not the joke so much, but you got to really work on your personality, your humanity. That's what you're trying to, your own brand of craziness. People want to tune in, and they don't have to have anything in common with you. Like, Richard Pryor did that. He got to his truth. People identified with it because I identified with the truth. They didn't have to live in the ghetto. A lot of suburban white people love Richard Pryor because they knew, hey, this crazy motherfucker is telling his truth. So it's about telling your truth expressing yourself, being you, getting your essence out there.
He basically like showed me the ropes, you know, when I got to the Comedy Store. He ended up working there too at some point. But he was like, this is what you do, and you know, you need to get the Judy, what's her name?
Judy Carter book.
The Judy Carter book,
Stand
you know.
up comedy.
Yeah, he was like kind of like my, you know,
Your little mentor.
Exactly, you know, and after, you know, they ready and everything, I even shouted him out, you know, on social media. I was like, you know, you were there from the start. You know, I remember all the faces and all the people that helped me. And I just started meeting comics at open mics and everything. And that's, you know, how I started networking with other people, finding out about other mics, and eventually getting booked on shows.
I think you'll find a variety within the comedic community. You'll find your heroes, from the full spectrum of heroes to vultures. You know what I mean? And there are some that will take you under the wing and are so protective of you and see your light and see your way in this industry and believe in you and keep you encouraged.
Watch the comics. Look at your elders, no matter what their issue is or what has happened to them. Look at the form of art that they display. Watch their timing. Watch what they talk about. Watch them as a character. There's certain character comics, and then there's certain writer comics. And you got to figure out which one you are.
You have to watch it all. I learned more from the people who are making mistakes, who are bombing, than I did from guys who were killing. I learned what not to do, like, hey, that don't work. You know, they don't get mad at the crowd and say they suck. That don't work. Read, study, you know, talk to some people, work on, you get deep, you know, get you know, that's what you want to bring up there. That's what you're selling up there is you, your ideas, your thoughts. The more you got to, the deeper your well, the more you have to draw from, right? I mean, you know, I love
That's
this.
for any artist.
That's for any artist, and just love itself. You know, I love this saying that one can only love as deep as they are. You know, can a shallow person love deeply? I don't know. You know, I don't think so. You can only give what you have, right? You can't give what you don't have. So if you have no depth, no ideas, no thoughts, no character, you can't give that to anybody across the footlights, right?
Right.
You know, so, you know, work on yourself, get good with yourself, you know. So that's it. Not the jokes. It's not the jokes. It's you.
When I was studying at NYU, there was a comic that was performing in Washington Square Park to random people. And his name was Dave Chappelle. And
Was
it was
he with
so
Charles Barnett?
fascinating. Yes.
Uh-huh.
He was with Charles Barnett, also a legend in
Who was
in
his
New York,
mentor.
Who was his mentor.
That's right.
And it was so fascinating because all of us were just waiting to get our spots at Boston Comedy Club in New York. But Dave Chappelle didn't wait. There was a boldness to him and Charles Barnett, because they would stand in Washington Square Park, do stand up, take turns, and then pass around a hat. They would do 3 shows a day, minimum like 3 shows a day. And I had such respect for that, because it's one thing when people come to a comedy club, they paid entrance fee or not, they've got a 2-drink minimum, they're there to see comedy. When you have to be so engaging that people stop what they're doing and where they're going in New York to listen to you, that builds a certain muscle. And to see him do that, was exciting and baffling at the same time. It's like, this is fascinating, because people sitting there walking the dog and turn around, you know, doing their thing. But and also that muscle of, I don't care if you aren't paying attention. I'm going to do what I'm doing and be so engaging that you will stop what you're doing. So that was interesting to see that. That's where I want to go. That's what I'm focusing on. And so there's a whole renewed interest and joy to stand up now. In a new way than what I had before.
Sometimes young, hungry stand-ups and actors will like blurt out, well, you know, I'm an actor, to the star or the, you know, the showrunner of a show, and then it's like they're repelled by them.
It gets weird.
You know, so it just etiquette, people out there. If you're trying to break into the business, or you are starting fresh, let people want to know about you. don't be so quick to say, well, I do this and I do that, because then people don't want to deal with you. And I say that as having experienced it myself when I was starting, as well as today. I get that, well, I'm a stand-up and I do this. Yes, but you got paid to do PA work. So do the PA work. Let people see that you have class, that you have character, and that you do the job. And then they will want to know you.
You have to be passionate about this. It's not a thing to go show off to your friends.
And responsible.
Absolutely.
You have to be responsible. If someone gives you the opportunity, you have to not make them out to be, bad. I shouldn't have done this, because don't give them regrets. Why did I help this person?
Right.
They just burned me.
And I always tell young comics, John Wooden was a coach at UCLA. He said something that's always stuck with me. He says, failure to prepare is preparing to fail. And I tell my students this because, like any job, you have to prepare yourself, man. You have to have your stuff ready, so when opportunity knocks and you're there, you're ready to go. It's not like, oh, well, can I have 2 more days before I go up? No, I want you here now.
Anytime there's a challenge, I would go, I can't. I've always tried to make it that I run towards the fear, not away from the fear. Because once you run away from fear, then fear controls you.
You get instant feedback from the audience on your thoughts, your reaction, on what you're doing. If a singer sings a song, the audience may not like that song, they think, oh, well, but in stand-up, you live or die by that sword. If they don't like you. That's how it feels. So it's such a teetering thing. But when you're on, I don't think there's a better feeling when you're on that flying carpet of humor, taking the audience on a ride, making the audience bend, is what they say, is when they're laughing so hard that they're bowling over. That is a joy.
Speaking of Richard Pryor, this was a big aha moment and teachable moment for me, in that I remember sitting in the main room at the Comedy Store, and he was there for a week or whatever. I remember just sitting there watching him. He was crafting some new bits, and he was dying on stage. And people were heckling him and giving him a hard time. And I remember turning around going, that's Richard Pryor. How could they do that? And then I sat there, I said, everybody bombs.
Everybody bombs, and you're never immune to it at any time, no matter how famous, just some nights it just ain't going to happen. But again, you just go back to, did I do my best?
I think I've done very well because I've gotten my butt kicked so hard. I've gone from very big bombs, and the next night being okay, let's hit some more mics. Even though I'd be very scared and very very saddened, or going through periods of weeks where it's this one bit is just not working and people are looking at you like you're a crazy person, and you're I think I used to be funny. You're kind of and you just have to trust, almost when people were on a boat, you gotta just trust that land is coming soon. Uh-huh. And land does come soon, but sometimes it's I love my friends who bear with me and see me when I'm working on something new and it's not quite anything, and people are I thought Lexi was funny. And then when it's always
that's
nice,
the process.
But it is the process, and it's always nice when you make it, you make it to see, David Arnold. He introduced this movie to me called Comedian, which is Jerry Seinfeld reworking his 1 hour, it's a documentary, and you see him making an hour from scratch, and you see him bombing, and you see him being oh, am I funny? And I was we all it was really, so anytime I'm having a rough peak, I watch that and I go okay, I'm not alone. We all go through this, because it's so vivid to watch. It's cool.
He told me to write 10 jokes a day, and when I do open mics, to start with the jokes that work, put the new ones in the middle, and then end with the joke that that
Kills.
works.
Yes.
Yeah. So he was great with telling me that. I did I wrote 5 jokes. I didn't write 10.
But for any comic who is listening, that is the standard. You open with something that you have hot from your arsenal. You close with something you have hot from your arsenal, and then you put the new stuff in the middle. That way, the audience forgives you
Right.
for making them stop laughing for a period of time. They give you, they extend that grace to you. But if you open and you're not funny, and you close and you're not funny, they will hate you.
Self-care. That's something that I'm just learning to demonstrate or to execute for myself. Self-care. You have to, because we have to love ourselves, because there is a lot of rejection. There is a lot of competition. We have to love ourselves and love who we are. We have to take it. We have to find our spiritual foundation, whatever that is. God, source, Buddha, whatever it is, Jesus, whatever it is. Everybody got their thing. Everybody marches to a different drummer. So you got to go with what works for you. So I say, you got to have a strong spiritual base, something that keeps you grounded, something that keeps you loving yourself and not focusing on man. And like you said earlier, accepting what somebody else or somebody says something to you, for you to ingest that, for you to take that on.
Disconnect. It's disconnecting from others so that you can show up in your best.
I love it. It's always a new challenge because there's a couple reasons why I do festivals. One, it's like a good way to like see how your stuff plays in a different market. Because like a lot of times, like sometimes people will also, like I see this in LA and I also see this with other people in other places, but it's kind of like if sometimes people tend to do local comedy. I don't remember where I heard this, but I heard someone say one time that an inside joke is like the funniest joke because it's like the thing that we all can like relate on, right? Like it's the thing that like it feels like so like, oh, it's a secret to us. So, but what happens sometimes is sometimes people will do so many inside jokes for the region that they're in.
Or the room.
Or
Sometimes
the room they're in. Exactly. The room. And then when they go to other markets, they realize.
Or other
rooms, they exactly. Because you can also experience different rooms in here. Like, yeah, you can go do a young show and then do a show that has older people and still have two different, like, they'll not know what you're talking about if you're like, oh, TikTok. Like, you get what I'm saying? So
what's talking and ticking? What?
Yeah, so like that's one of the reasons why comedy festivals are so great is because you get to like try all these different markets. It's also like you get to
test your material.
You get to test your material,
stand up,
and see how it works, and like you see like, okay, this joke actually needs some work. Like it doesn't. There's something about this that's even if it's not like a reference, there's something about this joke that like other markets aren't getting, and you're like, okay, it might just be a certain attitude that people like can kind of. I don't know. It's like you start figuring out that festivals too are a great place to network. Like as far as networking with other comics and also professional people. Also another reason why I love festivals is because one, you also get to travel, which is dope, and then I love festivals too because you get to practice in front of larger crowds.
That is our first and foremost purpose, I believe, to give service to one another. To be a light for one another, especially those that you love and that love you. I was given the opportunity to express myself so that in me expressing my gifts, that it will transform your life so you can continue to express yours in this lifetime. And that I want to do it always and be the best person that I'm capable of being from a place of love and a place of kindness. I don't always succeed. And if I don't succeed, I apologize. I'm working through stuff too. It depends on, what day is, but I'm not a vicious person. I'm a loving person. I get that from my family, my mom and my dad and my sisters. We're a loving family and my friends. And I want to always be a light, be of service. And I appreciate the opportunities to be able to do that whenever I can.
You are contributing to humanity by making people laugh. And I always say the beautiful thing about stand-up comedy is that it's such a sublime alchemy to take one's personal pain and transform that into public pleasure. I mean, there's nothing more sublime than that, right?
If the mic is calling you, you do it. And it's set up now where you can get up more often in a lot of different places. It's available now in places we didn't have those options. If we weren't booked at one of the main rooms, you weren't getting up unless it was some random show that hardly ever happened. With now the inundation of comedy, a lot of venues have that as a thing. Get on the open mic, speak your truth, do your comedy. If it calls to you, you must do it.